9:01, so we're going to go ahead and get started.
And we do not have a quorum. A quorum constitutes 3 or requires 3. So this is not a board meeting. And
Under advisement of our attorney, we are going to ask the 2 current sitting board members to leave, so we are not accused of any type of sunshine violations or meeting violations. We do have 2 elected board members who would love to hear your opinions as we listen, who are sitting here. That does not make it a violation of sunshine law. So we are going to ask Ms.
we have the pledge.
Krasinski and Ms. Strauss to leave. Please, after they leave, we will do the pledge. We'll get started with the listening session.
And thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it.
I know, right? Excuse me.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, thank you all for showing up and having a full house. I know this is something that is definitely on a lot of people's minds. This was a meeting that was called by 2 board members to get community's input given the results of the most recent election, to provide some transparency and history as to where we've been, and then listen to your thoughts, feedback, input, so our new board members can get them up to speed as quickly as we can because we are under a timeline. So I wanted to kind of start with just a little bit of an update generally as to where we are in the district. If you drove in the back parking lot, you'll notice that the CTE building has windows in it, and it is kind of fully encapsulated, or pretty close to it. I think they have the last one in now. That was, again, funded. The majority of funding was through a state grant for CTE program expansion to the school. We're really excited about kind of where that's going and how that looks. Should be open in January with students into it. And up and running. Riverview expansion is close to being completed. That was an 8 classroom addition that was voted by the board to be put on. That is nearing completion as well. Will be open probably at the same timeline in January. We're kind of looking at a timeout in January. That currently is slated to service our preschool for next year. So we're going to move our 4 preschool classes from Melridge over to the 4 preschool classes at the base floor of Riverview. For the next year, they will have their own entrance. It's a great preschool facility. We'll have 4 additional classrooms upstairs that if we've got classrooms, we'll fill the space. We do have a couple spaces at Riverview where we do have some overflow students, so we'll be able to place students there as well. We will move 3 of those classes actually throughout the year this year. So we have some classes in alternate spaces because of moving special education unit classrooms back to Riverview, that we're going to go ahead and place those and move them into those rooms. They'll move in as soon as possible. Riverview will have its dedicated music room back, as well as some of the pod spaces that we're using right now as temporary classrooms will be alleviated to go back. So we'll have 3 of the 4 classrooms with actual classes that we need kind of in there now. So that's a space filler for that. That was built one of the reasons why that was built was because of the casement project that was supposed to kick off. That's delayed to our knowledge. I don't know how long it is, but they haven't broken ground. We were told when we made the TIF, I think that they were going to break ground this year for it. I think they're starting to move dirt on it, or we're hearing that they're going to start, but it's still kind of delayed in that process. So we have some spaces, but even if that development, which is supposed to be between 1,300 and 1,500 rooftops, opens, it's a slow development, and we will have a space issue at that point. One school can't hold all of those houses, and we know that, so we have to have some planning for that. The state of Buckeye, which was the next edition, and Buckeye was on December 19th at that board meeting. The Board of Education approved to move ahead with a 12 classroom addition plus gymnasium at Buckeye Elementary School. That was then changed on March 20th to an 8 classroom addition. That's what's currently slated for. On January 30th at that meeting, we approved a contract with RFC Consulting, who's our owner's rep, TDA, who's the architect, and Cleveland Construction to do pre-construction work on the Buckeye project. They are at the point where there are plans issued. The plans are done for the 8 classroom addition as well as a gymnasium. The current modular classrooms have been either unhooked or destroyed, or taken, destroyed is not really the word, taken away. So they are no longer there. So we have Buckeye without -6 classrooms at this point. So the cost of rehooking up the modular classroom would not be feasible, nor would it be worth it on our end to do that, because all the decking and all that's where the cost is. It's not actually in the actual modular unit itself, it's all the ancillaries around it. Personally, I think that our students belong in brick and mortar. That's a personal belief of mine. I think Dr. Thompson believes in that as well. We've had some conversations that that's a good addition. I think the questions that we have, and the reason why we've had some of our new board, hearing from our new board members, as well as everyone who's out there, is what is the future and what is the long-term plan? And that's why Mrs. Kroniski and Mrs. Grassi, in their conversations with myself and Dr. Thompson, asked us to have this meeting to see, what is the plan and kind of where the involvement is in what the plan was there. When we set out the initial plan and had the community involvement, it did get changed to add the 8 classroom addition at Buckeye. That was not in our initial plan. We pivoted at that point, presented a new facilities plan moving forward that looked at a 12 classroom addition at Buckeye. 12 classrooms at Buckeye. If we added the 12 classroom additions in the gymnasium at Buckeye, that gives us a chance for flexibility. And when you deal with educational spaces, you do want as much flexibility as you can. The purpose of that, and my belief in doing that, is we have a third of our community who is paying taxes on 2 brand new buildings and not seeing any of the results from that. They can drive by them and they're beautiful buildings. They may have some sports in there, but their students aren't in there. If we were to completely renovate Buckeye and put the 12 classrooms on there, we would have the opportunity to, I'm going to use and be completely transparent, we would have to look at redistricting a little bit. But if we redistricted the district a little bit, we could actually take Melridge offline and use it for an alternate method and have Buckeye serve as our 3rd elementary school, all brand new and renovated, all equal to the same spaces that are at Parkside and Riverview. With the 8 classroom addition to Buckeye, we actually only gained 2 classrooms than we had. When you look at the historical enrollment at Buckeye that's there, what we see is that it takes a lot of our Heisley Park, that village is mostly Heisley Park students and a few other areas. We're starting to see a decline in enrollment a little bit, especially this year. Their kindergarten was down compared to, kindergarten and 3rd grade are down compared to where they were. Buckeye serving as a K-4 school has allowed us to fit all of the classes into the buildings without any sort of need for additional space. However, that's not going to last long. And it's a packed building. If you're in there during the day, it's pretty full. So really looking at what the next steps are to that point. From a timing standpoint, October 16th, the board issued a resolution for us to fund Buckeye through tax anticipation notes from our PI, and that's basically taking a loan against money we know we're going to get, and a program called COPS, which is a leaseback program. Basically, we go out and sell bonds and lease back the land, and we use the school as a collateral for it. Both ways are very efficient ways to complete these large-scale building projects without asking for additional tax funds, and I think that's the goal in any of this phase, is to complete this project without asking for additional property taxes or burden on the taxpayer. This will be the only time that we can do that. This ask is kind of where we're at with that. We have exceeded our cash. We pay cash for Riverview, and we are at the point where, from our PI standpoint, and we're sitting in a 75-year-old building, and our PI standpoint, that if we were to leverage this, we would be tight, but we could make it. And I think Dr. Thompson's why we have him. He's the money guy. It would be a tight note, but I think we can definitely do the COPS at, right now we're currently slated to borrow $12.5 million for the 8 classroom addition, plus some renovations here, and then Melridge is also as a part of the project. That's the current status of this current board's thoughts. I think the questions that we have moving forward, and I know that Mrs. Kroniski and Mrs. Grassi have, in serving as their person to kind of communicate this out, is really and truly, is this the right avenue for our community moving forward starting in January 2026? Is this the pathway we head? Do we focus more on Buckeye? Do we go back to our plan to look at that? And you came here with the idea that there is public comment, so we want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear what you have to say. I do ask that we keep rules of decorum, in fact, and focus directly on the building projects and the opportunities for students and not individual members or anything that might have happened as we work to move forward. We're going to have a lot of these because regardless of what we do and where we come from here, we need to adjust our facilities. We sit in a 75-year-old building that has some work to be done. And we need to do some adjustments, whether we build a new school or whether we take a look at this historic school. And this school is beloved by the community. Do we remodel this school and do it different? We need to have a plan for our buses. We need to have a plan for maintenance. So I think we do need to revamp our comprehensive facilities plan. We need to do it fast. And it's a pivot and it's an adjustment. One thing I'll never turn down in a district is space or classes. We have classrooms and we have space, and we can move some people around to make that work and provide high quality education for all of our students. I think that's our goal. Initial thoughts in what that could look like, because I've sat and thought a little about it. I don't sleep much anymore, so kind of looking at what that is. I've thought about 5th grade at Lamouth seems to be like it's going well. They love it there. I think I think it's a great age level, and I know eventually casement's going to start. They're going to move dirt. We're going to have students. We know that that's going to happen. We see our enrollment rising in schools, or we see the numbers of houses rising, which actually makes sense. And new development starts. So if that's going to make sense. So if 5th grade makes sense at Lamouth, we can still pivot and make Lamouth a 5-6 building as it currently stands. We could add on classrooms to Lamouth to make it a 5-8 building. We could then go back to looking to remodeling and revamping and adding on to this area to make this building either a 7-12 campus like the initial plan, with more of a remodel and not necessarily a tear down and build, because again, historical perspective is important. The one thing I've heard when I went listening, I've heard a couple of things that came out loud and clear. Number one, a lot of our community loves the way that this high school looks, the iconic looks of the high school. And if you look at other buildings and projects that have done it in communities, Lakewood has done it where they've kept their face. Cleveland Heights has done it with their high school where they kept the face of their building and kind of built back. I think that's something for Riverside that is kind of important. Even our logo has the cupola on there. You have to keep the cupola. So I mean, I know we can build the new one, but I think that doesn't necessarily serve the face. Shaker Heights is currently doing a building renovation project where they're Woodbury, which is 100 years old. There's a 100-year-old building. They're renovating that, but keeping the face. That does come with some costs to it, and sometimes it's easier to build back and it looks a bit different. But I think we'll get the right people in the room to make sure that we service the community as they want, and actually listen to kind of what the plan is. But I think the point is we need to have a plan. We need to stick to the plan, and we're going to go forward and say this is the Riverside plan moving forward. So I think that those are the two options for is Lamouth become 5-6? Does Lamouth become 5-8? Is kind of the big question. How much do we put to there? I think the other parts of it that I've heard from the community when we did the first round of building sessions is the need and desire for a centralized space for other activities. I've had conversations with the Y preliminary about do we bring, and I know the Central Y is looking at, do we bring a YMCA? Do we offer some community facilities? Do we look to bring in our townships and all of that to offer senior center facilities on our property? We have land. One of the great things that I know that they did at Willoughby Eastlake that went over well is they partnered with both the YMCA and the city of Willoughby to add a community center and a pool in a Y at the same time they were building construction. And we are fortunate to have Dr. Thompson, who led that work at that point. So he's got a little bit of experience of how those partnerships work, drawing up those contracts and moving through it. And if you haven't had a chance to walk through either North or South High School and the spaces that are there, they're gorgeous. And they're, quite frankly, what our kids deserve. So with that, I kind of ask for, the other one is on November 5th, we did authorize the guaranteed maximum price of the current 8-classroom addition at Buckeye with gym to be $9.5 million. We are borrowing currently slated to borrow $12 million, which gives us $2.5 million to renovate the entire rest of the building, or that and split it with Melridge. My concern, and I am being completely transparent with all of that, my concern is I don't know if $2.5 million will renovate the building, and what I don't want to create is the media center at the high school. So if you know, the media center is a gorgeous building. I absolutely love it. It's one floor, and logistically during the day, it causes bottlenecks for our students. If you put us in, one thing we've always talked about is how do you put a hallway up there, and how do you have a second floor to move kids across? Because when they're going to both buildings, it's an issue. So we did it. It's great what we did, but if we just would have spent a little more, could we have done it all the way? And I think we're at the point where once we borrow, we can't borrow again. Because we are borrowing and actually using the building as collateral, and we can't say, hey, we're going to put the collateral, but we can't put it in under collateral twice. So it's a definite limit to that. So the real question is, what's the tenor of the community? Where do we move to, and kind of how do we take the situation we're in? To stop, and to my understanding, we are not at a point where we should stop this Buckeye project, because we would just take the money that we spend on it and truly, it's not a recommendation at all. I know we had the other ones where, hey, we're going to do Lamouth or whatever. We're too far in that we would actually be wasting tax money, and I don't think any one of us could say in full heart, let's recommend to do that. We need to do something with Buckeye. We don't have spaces for our students. We need to at least, at a minimum, replace the spaces that we have taken down. I believe, and I feel strongly, that we make this the next building and the third of our large elementaries, and then our elementary, and when we walk away, our elementary students are all done, the spaces are equal, and everything is kind of set to that way. So that's the point of Mrs. Kroniski and Mrs. Grassi asking us to kind of sit here, listen to you, and at that point, I will open it up, and I ask you please just state your name so we can take notes and kind of go from there, and I'll answer questions as much as I know. So,
Can I just add something
Absolutely.
real quickly? So what I'm trying to glean from this meeting, so where we're sitting right now is we're scheduled to issue debt Thursday. Okay? That debt issuance by resolution is $12 million. $12 million, I'm willing to say it, $12 million will not renovate Buckeye and will not add the additional classrooms if that is the direction that the board and the community wants to go. There are the funds to do what was initially stated. Those funds are there. The resolution says not to exceed 15 million. So there's flexibility in the resolution, which is selling those bonds Thursday. So I believe we could be in complete compliance with all of our current board members. I'm curious to see what our new board members have to say. We could issue up to $15 million, which would do the entire building. That's going to require change orders, which is going to halt progress temporarily, but change orders aren't uncommon in construction. So, for me, the question is, new board, community, do you support going from $12 million in debt issuance to $15 million in debt issuance? And then we can have a discussion at a later point, because obviously the more you loan, the more you owe, the higher your payments. This comes out of our permanent improvement dollars. This would end up taking somewhere around maybe getting close to $1 million. And how long do you finance it? 25 years, which is currently the plan. The COPS part, that's the certificates of participation. It's just it's a low interest loan is what it is. Do we extend that to 30 years? That'd drop the payment. Of course, our payback would be more, it works just like a mortgage. Think of your mortgage. That's what it works like. So if there is going to be a change, it has to be now, or else or else we'll lose hundreds of thousands of dollars that we've already invested to take the process to this point. So therein lies the very difficult challenge that we find ourselves in if we're going to try to pivot. And Dr. Rotino and I do not have the authority to make these changes on our own. So.
Can I ask you to address what are the liquidated damages and sunk costs associated with either stopping the Buckeye project altogether or modifying it to keep this within the budgetary realm that the school district would not be put under financial stress for?
So we have right now issued a pre-construction contract of around $700,000, a little north of $700,000, plus we modified the contracts with both the TD, the architect, as well as our owner's rep. So I would guess that's roughly another $250,000 or so for the work that they've done. So we're north of $1 million into it now.
And that would be some
I think that's
cost.
fair. Those would be, if we stopped, walked away, those are all lost costs.
And if you
To some
try to modify the issuance and issue more debt, let's say in January, when the new board seats itself, well, you know, you're talking about roughly $150,000 to $200,000 in fees, et cetera, that we would have to pay again to issue more debt.
I would say the other part to this as well, in talking with our municipal advisor, is when you're dealing with investors,
They won't look as.
you do want to look favorable. We do look favorable. We want to continue to look favorable. We understand, and they even understand pulling it, getting your, really looking to kind of, hey, we want to repurpose. We need a little bit more to do the project. That is a normal thing that happens. But the stop, start, continue, not necessarily looking favorable. So we want to make sure that we're smooth in this, that we are communicative up front, and be complete, which is why the Saturday meeting, because our municipal advisors need to know Monday kind of what we are thinking the tenor is. In terms of who has the authority, our responsibilities, both Dr. Thompson and I, are to answer to the board through resolution. So we reply to the board as a whole. The board is 5, and it's a collective will of the 5. So that's how that works. It's not any individual board member. It is their collective. It's the collective majority at the meeting and at the time. So in these issues, they were all 3-2. So there are collectively to the three board members who have instructed us to move forward and to continue on. We are in a quandary, I think that's a fair way to say it, because we're currently starting a project and moving forward with a project as early as November 15th to mobilize and start some pre-construction work and all of that. And it will stop because it may even snow Monday. They're calling for it. So it will stop because of weather conditions, take a pause, and then continue under the new board. And the new board will be directed to kind of carry out whatever is done. Any type of change order that comes from there at that point will be cost even more to the district. There are some things that we have thought about in terms of how do we modify the initial plan at Buckeye if we wanted to add 4 classrooms, but at that point the financing is the rub, because 4 classrooms, they're not cheap. And so how do you do that? Because if you were just to go 12 back, it's going to look weird. So we would do the 8 and then maybe 4 on the other side coming off of it. So we've thought about ways to do this, but I am not an architect and I don't have those skills or that vision. That's why we have architects that work for us. So there is a question in the back.
Yeah, I know that we own these properties, and we've talked about this in the facility phases plan and like what's financially makes sense. What I guess my concern is here, I work at Parkside. We as a building have a lot of limitations on what we're allowed to do outside of the building. Example, we can't put up a storage shed to store PTO items because of limitations on the property. We're on a main road. We can't turn on our beaver light in the front yard after a certain time because it interacts with other people across the street. That's fine. what you're pulling all these families and these students into a residential neighborhood with this Buckeye development. What are the limitations gonna be there? We can't have, I mean, the parking at Riverview, the dismissal and arrival. It seems like those are things that weren't really considered. Or even, I mean, just not acknowledged, or they just said it is what it is. What's gonna happen, how many students are we planning to house at Buckeye? And the impact that it's gonna have on the surrounding neighborhood on that.
Yeah, no, those are all great questions. And as you speak, can you state your name, please?
Oh, sorry, Lauren Magruder.
Okay, thanks. I think one of the things that we do have to look at is that's a legitimate question, and the Parkside situation were agreements made with not only residents but also Concord Township, and kind of how they were at a very contentious time with the district in Concord Township, and I think that is coming from historic. I was not directly involved in that, but that's just what I've heard historically, is there were some contentions that were involved there. Those have since and kind of changed with changes in leadership at Concord Township, and I think we can really start to have some of those bigger questions in terms of what you can and can't do at Parkside. But yet again, land sometimes is a hard thing to acquire. Where we acquired Parkside is a different issue. I think with the Buckeye issue that is in Painesville Township, they're a little more amenable to school and school building at some point. I think Riverview, the parking at the original Riverview was short. The additional parking spaces without the kind of it's a bonus. I think anytime in a school, I would say that other than this building here, parking is always not enough when you bring in all of your students and families and try to have one event. Lamouth has always been a nightmare. So is every one of our schools, and Buckeye currently is a nightmare. Part of, I think, the renovation would even be looking at, yes, putting parking on the side, but even looking at the front parking lot, taking a few of the snowplow catchers out and flattening it out, and kind of expanding parking to that. But that's all comes in some of the change order and redesign process as this looks. To the who is going to be there, it would be all K4 students who are zoned for Melridge and Buckeye. So it would be about the same size as, and we would, again, this comes with two caveats, and I don't want it to be a surprise. It is taking Melridge offline and looking at a redistrict plan. And both of those are redistricting our elementaries, because I think we want to make sure that we have about a third, and a third. And we're typically looking, we have class sizes of about 230, so about 110 per grade. That's not the right math, that would be 330.
Oh, that was bad
That
math.
was bad math.
Very
No, we're looking at four
like
classrooms,
math.
so 4 classrooms of each grade level in each of our buildings. The thought then in the future is what happens if we experience this great growth, and what happens if casement comes out? Because those are questions that have been asked. Those questions, again, the answer is not easy, but it can be we have a large building in Riverview. We do have Melridge as an opportunity in the school. We don't plan on selling it. We plan on keeping it and repurposing it in some way. That could become the preschool. We could shift to that. Then you have 8 more classrooms at Riverview, and you would, again, not completely and totally redistrict, but shift some fringe developments into Riverview to take some of those, or actually that would just take the development that's in his backyard, and that would add classrooms. And if you made those buildings K4 and made everything in the district as a 5, Lamouth holds all 5th graders and something else, so it's either 5-6 or 5-8. 5-8 requires a significant addition. If that happens at that point, then that will kind of free up some spaces along in our other buildings, and we will definitely have no problem with space issues and be available for any type of growth. As a whole, our population of students is declining. That is not just us, that is Northeast Ohio, that is nationwide. Families are having less children. That's just the nature of it. So I think the average of children are coming down. So I think that's what we're looking at from that standpoint. So I hope I answered most of your question.
You did. I think
Okay.
that's one of the concerns was like, how is it going to impact the people in that neighborhood, and how do they feel about this? Where we have Lamouth, we have the space, we own the space. It was part of the original plan of making that the third elementary school, and it's on the main road, and it's not pulling people into a residential neighborhood.
That's a fair question. I think all of our schools have traffic issues with arrival and dismissal. And Lamouth's a nightmare. I think every one of the Lamouth parents will tell you that it's a nightmare because of Auburn Road, and we hear about it. We've heard about Riverview, and they're on the main roads. I don't get complaints about Buckeye. I know Mrs. Smolin is here. Whether she is a traffic guiding guru or whether we just don't, I'm not exactly sure, but I know that I don't get that. But it's a smaller entity. We would add, but again, Melridge is our smallest school, and we're not. It's not a huge addition. And we're not doubling the size of Buckeye. We would be adding, roughly 2 classes a section.
As they are traffic coming for arrival. Arrival is a lot more flexible with traffic. Dismissal, as with any school. I mean, we go down Buckeye Road. It's a fairgrounds road where parents start to line up early. So we try to alleviate that, but it's not any different, I don't think, than any other headache that the other schools are facing. Maybe at a more minimal.
Yeah. With the expanded parking lot and currently the way that they're planning it, you will actually be able to pull cars in off the streets and have them line up. The way that they've done even at Riverview where they pulled them around the back. So we'll be able to pull cars in off the streets, which will help. It's not going to be perfect, but it will definitely help.
A couple questions that mainly what would help in the audience.
For those of you who don't know, that's future board member Joe Adino. So
Thank you. Does the $15 million satisfy the wishes of the administration and Mrs. Smolin collectively? And what does that do to the impact of the payment? I know that was already discussed on the annual payments back on the cops and tans, and what would that do to that? And then also, can you elaborate on the lifetime of Buckeye doing this addition and remodeling renovation to Buckeye? We know that the school is old. What do the professionals think it does to the lifetime of Buckeye? And then the last question I have is the staff impacts on the Melridge faculty. Obviously, taking that offline, that might be hard for some people to hear on a Saturday morning. I'm just curious. I know I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but what your early estimates are on what it would do to the staff.
All good questions. We have been told through our through Roger Ratchey, who is our owner's rep, that $15 million should be enough to complete the project as requested, finish the building, and with all funds focused on Buckeye. So we've been told that's all of the new addition, and that is floors, lights, electric, because electric is part of upgrades to electric, ceilings, air in the entire building, windows, new roof, all of that. Walking away from that, the life of Buckeye, at least 30 years if maintained well. We have a great maintenance staff, could be even more. So definitely past where I will be here. I hope to be around and watch this, but I hope to be retired at that point. But I think that's definitely something to the future. I think we would see it to the same lifespan that we would expect for Parkside and Riverview to that aspect. I think to the staffing aspect, in terms of reductions in staff, we haven't done the exact numbers. We are at a point right now, we are a more veteran staff who are definitely
I call us middle-aged.
definitely close to retirement. We had a number of retirements last year as STRS moved its years down from early to 32. We are expecting a number of retirements this year and next year. We saved roughly $1 million in staffing costs this year by not replacing. We didn't RIF. We just did not replace as people retired. When we get a retirement, we look at what those are. Do we need it? Is the funding there? Some of them are temporary. Some of those spaces and those that we did not fill are because we didn't fill a retired elementary school teacher because we only had 2 sections of kindergarten instead of the traditional 3 that we have. If that becomes a regular occurrence, then we don't have to bring that staff back. So it depends on where those are. So that's where the reductions would come from. I think the other staffing that we'd have, certified staff, so those are your teaching staff. Your classified staff, those are our hardest positions to fill. We would just place them other places. I think that there would not be, I do not see a spot where we would technically reduce any of our classified staff because we need them and we continue to post for them. So I think those are, and when you make a bigger building, you actually need sometimes more people. They would be different positions at some point. So we would have a principal and so when we opened the larger buildings, we went from 6 small elementary schools where they each had just 1 principal to 2 buildings that had a principal, and now they have an assistant principal to kind of make sure that the operations run. We would probably do the same in that point. And I do know that our Melridge principal is also on her way to retirement at some point soon.
Your financial part is originally projected $850,000 a year coming from the permanent improvement levy, which is roughly $3 million per year, to $955,000 per year, which would starting to get close to about 1/3 of the PI funds would be tied up into this debt issuance.
And that 950, that's at 25 years, not 30?
I believe that's at 30.
That's at 30. That's modeling at 30.
We do think, depending on when we issue, we know that the rates are going down, so it could be something where if we have if they have to rework the deal, there may be another couple weeks of delay because they're reworking the deal to pull that time. That would require, the rates may drop and will be more favorable. Not that we're chasing rates, because you don't chase rates in the market, but we do that.
I have some questions, not in any particular order. Jen Kalin. Dr. Thompson, what are our other financing options?
Non-voted? Okay, so the 2 non-voted options that a district can indebt itself up to 9% of your total property valuation. So you take the total property valuation of all of Riverside and you can indebt up to 9% of that, not to exceed. The 3 areas that you typically see the most common way is to issue a bond. Have a bond issue, put it out in the community, it passes or it fails. Without a vote, you can issue a COPS, a Certificate of Participation, which is a low-interest loan, and the collateral is buildings in the district. So the bondholders that buy those bonds are buying it with the collateral that theoretically, if we defaulted on our loan, they could take those buildings. Second way is called a TANS, a tax anticipation note, and it's basically like going into an early check cashing place and cashing your check a week before your check actually comes in, and you pay a certain fee for that. That's essentially what a TANS is. It's getting our tax dollars fronted to us. Another way, although there is so much uncertainty on what we're going to do with property taxes at this point and where property taxes are going, but we have a thing called inside millage, and not to get too technical, but as you know, House Bill 920 freezes revenue for a school district forever. So once a levy's passed, it never collects more. Never. That's so misunderstood in the community at large. But it doesn't. That was passed in 1976, with the exception of your inside mills. And we have 4 mills that are inside mills. So the board could do an inside mill transfer and transfer some of those mills out of inside millage for immediate cash. I would not recommend that because we are relying on the growth of our inside mills to get some additional revenue year to year to year. So And
That
then,
was tried at Berkshire tried to do that as a PI levy failed. They tried to transfer bill off, and actually the county commission reversed it and said they took it back. So
it's very controversial. It can be done legally. It can be done, but it's controversial. And the last one that I think is really out there that's prevalent that you'll see used to a certain degree, although it has a lot of limitations. It's called a House Bill 264 project. And what that is, and Rich and I aren't big fans of House Bill 264s, and not to mention the fact that what it is an energy company comes in and says, you've got all these old lights, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to change all those out and then front you $10 million or whatever that dollar amount associated with how extensive the project is. You can do whatever you want with the $10 million as far as a permanent improvement goes. And the theory is that you're going to save electricity to offset that payment for the $10 million. That's not been my experience. I've done a House Bill 264 project before. You don't really see that, and then it becomes less making sense for us to do it way less because Rich and his team's way ahead of the game. They've already been changing the balances, and even though the building is very old, they've made the upgrades in the building itself to kind of contain our energy costs. So there's just not a lot. There's no low-hanging fruit there. So really, in this district, I'll say it as the new guy. The reality is, this district is going to have to face the fact that we have a building that's well beyond its useful life in repairs, et cetera, because of financial constraints that happens everywhere. Maintenance gets kicked. We tell the maintenance department to take duct tape and fix things because we don't have any money, and it just exacerbates the problem. But, who in this political climate wants to go out for a bond issue? Your passage is probably not real high, and we saw that in the last election, just Tuesday. And we, of course, are levy eminent. We are in deficit spending, and we will be on the ballot. It's just a matter of time, and you have to make hard choices. Like, no one wants to close an elementary school. There'll be a lot of upset people over that idea, but it sure financially makes a lot of sense. So, how do you juxtapose those two things against one another? But that's the reality of where we are. So there's limited options. The two that we're exercising, and a bond issue, which has not been, to my knowledge, talked about at the board level.
I would say at this point we are past any type of status where we could go out for a bond. And I would say that just because we have removed 6 classrooms of space for students and have been lucky because we didn't get as many this year. But the experience at Buckeye moving forward would not be the same for our students if we were to wait to go out for a bond, see if we got the funding, put it on again and collect it. It just, the money,
Years.
we are at a point of, we need to do something. We need to replace the spaces that have been taken, and we need to put our students in brick and mortar. That is all. Everyone is on understanding of that. It is long-term forecasting. The goal, I think, of myself, Dr. Thompson, as well as Mrs. Kruniski and Mrs. Grassi, is to be done with the project, do this, turnkey, walk away, 30 years. Yes, we have to do maintenance. There'll be some things here and there, but we know that this is a building that is set up to last and continue to house our students. And now we have a plan of elementary spaces are done. We know we're going to get potentially the influx of new casement homes. That gives us some time. At that point, we focus on, yes, we're going to have to ask for money for both general purpose funds, As well as we're going to have to ask for a bond issue. We cannot do any significant type of work here at the campus or even to Lamouth to build anything on without without an ask for money. It's the question, and it's not going to be a small ask. High schools are not cheap and they continue to get more expensive. Whether you build new or renovate, it's a large ask. We can do some partnerships with communities to help provide amenities for people so that everyone benefits from it and not just our students. I think that is a key to any type of school building project. Is the school is the center and the hub of the community. What does our community want? What resources do they want that they see in other neighborhoods that we could provide in a building program? Because the one thing that we have is available land, and we will be willing to partner with anyone to kind of provide that land and to help them with that land, because to avoid spaces, opportunities not only for our students but for our communities. Our one example I will give you is our field. When we turfed the field, we went from having maybe 30, 50 events on it a year to that field I bet you it is filled right now. Somebody's on it doing something on that turf field because it's raining out and you get muddy. So especially in the spring, our field is there. What I've heard from our community is we need another one. Those are expensive. They come at a cost. But what does that look like in this project? So some of the other things that are there, because youth sports use it. All of our, even if you are a student who sends or a family who sends your students to NDCL, those are and you still playing local leagues. Those are areas that you would use for youth sports. So how do we provide those opportunities? The more sports we continue to add, lacrosse, the more areas we need. We don't have the fields that are available and our field spaces that are there. Grass fields get overused. When they get overused, they get eaten up, they get chewed up, and it just becomes a big mud pit, which is fun for no one. So I think those are the questions we have to ask. Auditorium space, Fine Arts Performing Center, those community hubs like that. Our auditorium is gorgeous. I think those seats are 75 years old. When you come watch the play next week, you'll feel it when you sit in there. But I think, so how do we renovate those spaces because Fairport Dance uses it, other local dance community theater, all of that. When we open CTE, what do we do for night education classes, and how do we provide spaces to our welding lab to provide night classes? Those are questions we've asked with our facilities, and kind of working through some of that. And that's part of a comprehensive plan moving forward. Is when you look at large centers and large scale centers, other than just athletic spaces, what are the other spaces that we can provide for families, whether they send their students here or not, that are going to be beneficial? I think that the model for that, honestly, is Willoughby's, like with the senior center and the Y and all that kind of tied to one. Those classes are there, and that is a great use of space. And then the school benefits as well. So I think that taking a look at that model and having those conversations are important. But again, those things take a lot of money, a great plan, and just some partnerships. We've got the established relationships. Now it's how do we put the plan together and what does it look like moving forward?
Sorry. Yeah, I still have questions,
Oh.
but go ahead, Jimmy Lee, if you could.
Jimmy Lee Byers. I think Lori alluded to a report, an audit of the maintenance needed for all of the buildings in the districts, X amount of millions of dollars, with a complete renovation, 12 classrooms, gymnasium, cafeteria, whatever, at Buckeye and Melridge offline. How much of that, whatever that amount was, 100 million, are we eating into?
That takes about, what is that, about, I'm looking at Rich because I know he's got the numbers a little bit more. The majority of that was here at this building, as well as there was a little bit of, Buckeye was 9 or 10, and Melridge was about the same. So it's about 20 million we're eating away of the required maintenance that would be there.
That report is on our website under facilities. So.
We can get you a copy of it as well. I would not recommend printing it because it's seriously,
It's huge.
but it's very comprehensive, and I think we've addressed some of those that are in there. But the large ticket items are roof here.
Yeah.
You have a quarter mile of roof that you have to do. Boilers here. Windows and windows. So just so everyone, windows here. I think the building is shifted and all that. So it's not. They're all custom and they're all asbestos. So both of those come with abatement and all that. We've asked for kind of renovation of projects, and they're how much to replace. And they're starting into millions. So we're looking to start some of this project, but we want to know what we're going to do with it as well. So phasing out that is another.
Buckeye was 9.1 million.
And how old is this report?
It's 2 years.
Oh,
To
okay, so
2023. We had previous reports done by the OFCC who came in 2008, 2013. And their recommendation both times was to basically get rid of every building in the district other than the move.
It
Well,
would
this would
not,
give us-
it would not be cost effective. You can renovate, I'm not saying you can't renovate this building, but it would be far less expensive to not renovate it to build new. And the reports there support that.
And that's to build to their standards. So so the OFCC has their standards that you have to build to. When we renovate Buckeye, those have some additional things that it wouldn't be in some of the spots. And so Buckeye would not be an OFCC project. And all that means is at the end of the day, when our turn in line comes up, we would receive a rebate from the state if we made it as a project. And our rebate, I think, is 3% of the whole total cost. It's 3 or 5. It is very low. And so the return on investment isn't there.
Melridge was 7.9 million. So 9.1 at Buckeye, 7.9 at Melridge.
So 16 million.
We're looking at
Yes.
So Jen Palin again, these are more questions for you. So basically $1 million that we have into Buckeye right now, right? How much of that is money that we've spent versus the contract amount? Like we haven't paid the $1 million yet, right?
No, there's been
So
close to 700,000 paid out so far.
Okay. What's the interest cost on the cops for the duration?
We don't know that yet until we sell the bonds.
I'm
It-
guessing more than the money we've spent though, right?
Over the life of 30 years?
Right.
Oh, of course, yes.
Okay. So I know that this is happening Thursday, but can we delay it? And I think it's fair to say that this entire process has been very rushed. We spent 6 months, 8 months with a facility plan that had community input, that had thought out processes, brought in partnerships where they would add additional money, all of those things. I don't want to say can we start over, but can we? Can we take the time to go back through the facility plan, find a long-term plan for everything, figure out how much that's going to cost, what funding makes the most sense, and maybe it's a combination of funding, right? Maybe it's a combination of these different things that you had mentioned. Do we have the ability to do that? Or right now are our hands tied and we have to rush into Buckeye, we have to do it and have it not really be like this well thought out process?
That's a really fair question.
That is very fair.
And that's a fair question. One, honestly, I'm not trying to dodge. I simply don't know the answer. And what I mean by that is we have a board resolution. Although we've had board elections, our board is not changed.
Correct.
So currently, our two gentlemen at the front table carry no real authority at this point. So how we navigate that is very, very tricky. And also, I think it's probably from what you're saying, I think it's probably somewhere more in the middle, that we can't completely halt the project because we have architectural drawings, hundreds of thousands owed to architects. We've demoed classrooms. I mean, I think it'd be pretty hard to reel that all the way back and say, let's just start over. That would be difficult. Could we make modifications that might fit into a larger plan? I think that is conceivable. That is doable. But right now, I say this to our current board, I say this to our new board, and I say this to the community. Please recognize the very difficult spot that Chris and I are in. And so we want to do what's right. We want to be fiscally responsible. and I want to be respectful to all 7 board members. So therein lies the difficulty. I do think we have some room to move, but I think it's got to be done, unfortunately, if that's going to be done, it has to be done quickly.
So a follow-up question to that. We go through, we do Buckeye. What does the financials look like after that? Because that doesn't include Melridge, it doesn't include anything here. It doesn't really take care of overall space issues and condition issues throughout the district. Because I think total, don't quote me on this, but I want to say that the Bialowski report has hundreds of, like, it's over $100 million of repairs.
I think it was 90 million.
It'll be over 100 million by the
Yeah,
time
yeah,
we ever get to it.
correct. So what's the plan? I don't know if you can ask that or answer that right now, but like.
Well, I would say this, how do you eat an elephant?
Right.
One bite at a time,
So
right?
what's our financing look like though? Can we do any of these other things?
I
after
believe-
Buckeye?
I feel like you're asking my personal opinion.
I'm asking an educated
Yeah,
opinion, your
my
professional opinion.
personal opinion, based on an educator, a finance person, been in his shoes before. I would want to sew up all the elementary schools. I would close an elementary school, and I know that's not popular, but we have to be fiscally responsible, and at least then you can move on to call it phase 2, call it whatever you want to call the next step in this plan, but at least you have your elementary schools buttoned up with every elementary student having virtually the same experience.
But that's essentially what the community wanted, is we wanted to do, it was like, I don't know, over 80% of the community wanted to have like Lamouth and maybe do something community-wise with Melridge, and so I feel like it might be more common doing it that way. I guess I personally want to understand what financial position we're going to be in to be able to address the district.
The financial situation is and this is not uncommon. I know it's new to Riverside folks, but to tie up PI in these kind of loans is not unusual. That's more common than uncommon. So when we forecast out our PI levy, obviously I'm going to have to adjust it if we do this 15 million by another 150,000 roughly. But as it stands right now, buying our buses, doing all the things that we know we need to do, that leaves about, on any given year, I'd say $500,000 to $800,000 that I could move to Rich's accounts to face whatever catastrophic event may occur. I'm comfortable with that. But I'm also thinking that we have to do something. Doing nothing is the worst thing, in my view.
If I can build on to that, I think we're at a time right now, and you also have to take it's not just Riverside. We have to take the political climate that exists in the state of Ohio. Our income right now, regardless, comes from property taxes. We get a little from the state here and there. We go for as much grant money.
18%.
Yeah, but the
local
majority of our
property
income
tax.
comes from property taxes, and the reality of it is, we've seen a huge increase in property taxes, and we need some reform. I mean, I think everyone agrees that we need some reform. We know there's an amendment or a ballot initiative that they're working to try to eliminate all property taxes, which would be catastrophic. But I believe also that the state legislature have heard that, and they are working to put some adjustments into property taxes. If you're on the 20-mil floor, what counts, what doesn't, all of that. That's a whole nother meeting for a whole nother time, and that is his meeting, and you would love it because he'll have a chalkboard and draw lines, and it'll be great.
You'll know nothing more than when you came in.
But I think to that extent, I also know, really in looking at how revenues come about, as a county, we are looking to find solutions. Because whether you know or don't know, the county just voted to take one of the resolutions and one of the breakers that they have to reduce property taxes, which is to double the homestead exemption and double the owner-occupied reduction, which is nice. But when they do that from the Ohio standpoint, they backfill it. And Ohio gives us the money back. At this point, they doubled the homestead exemption, doubled the owner-occupied, but there's no plan to backfill, and the county has actually said we're not allowed to backfill by any means. So they said we're taking it, and it's all public entities. So it's us, it's the parks, it's all that. For us right now, we're looking at about $1.1 million that we are losing with tax bill 25, which starts January 1st of 26. Did I get that right?
I think it's 1.3, but
Well,
yes.
The years though, the years are confusing to me.
Yeah.
So that in itself is we don't know. The other part of it is it is coming so fast that we don't know where it's coming from. When they typically take that 12, because there's a 12.5% rollback on a lot of our levies that exist. When that 12.5% rollback goes, it goes into operating funds. It doesn't go into PI. It doesn't get specifically counted. It goes directly into operating as a state payment. We see it. We don't know what it's going to look like in terms of collection of PI, or PI may reduce by a little bit that we're collecting. So where we collect currently 2.627 plus interest gets us up to 3 investments. It may be a little bit down, and we know that moving forward. But the other problem that we're having is, and again, this is you don't just want to start it and say, hey, we'll get you good enough, because that's not good enough. I think that's the big thing is this community deserves more than just, we're going to do what we can. They've made a commitment to us, and I think that's part of it. How do we make the commitment back to the Buckeye and Melridge families who are paying the additional mills for Parkside and River? How do we get it back to them in a fair manner to say, your kids have that same experience? Yes, pre-K through 4. I mean, Labuth's cool that they get to go. They love that part of it. We did that purposely for them to give them that experience, and it's working out great. But I think those are the next questions that we have as a community to move forward. But I don't think we can pause this to put it on a levy or to kind of, it needs to move forward. The question is, at what rate does it move forward, and at what are we willing to kind of put in holistically to say, this is what makes sense, and this is the experience we want for all Riverside students. And yes, it does involve a little bit of uncomfort for some families. We're taking a building offline. We're looking at redistricting in a couple of years to move people around and to space people out evenly. Those are all legitimate things that are going to happen. They will probably happen regardless of what needs to occur. We're at that point where we need to look at some things. But do we have the opportunity for a short period of time to use those spaces as revenue generators? When we say we're taking Melridge offline, there's no intent to sell it at this point. There's an intent to really use it as, how can we use it in a different way? How can we repurpose it to kind of fit the needs of the community or the county, and use it to potentially generate revenue to pay for what it costs to keep the heat on, and maybe give us a little bit more? Where can we draw some funds from? So I think that's a big change from us too, that we're really looking at what that looks like.
Go ahead, Chris.
Sure. Okay. Chris Weiss. So, I think that the big gorilla in the room that we're trying to wrestle with here is we've got 53 days until we're seating a new board. And clearly, the present board for the next 53 days has demonstrated that it's not willing to do the will of the people and has been at odds at certain times with the administration and so forth. So it seems to me that what we're looking for is there a consensus to try to delay this massive debt obligation, which is going to happen Thursday, according to you, Mr. Thompson, and then give the new board an opportunity to weigh in and make sure that truly we're doing not only the will of the district but the will of the people and what is best for the students. I think that the families who have students that go to Melridge and Buckeye, they've long deserved to have something done for their elementary school, and I don't disagree with any of that. I mean, possibly you might look at putting 6 or 8 classrooms only on there. I realize that the trailers are gone and you don't have that space. So I guess, and it seems to me that why Belinda and Lori called this meeting is, I'm aware that, Mr. Thompson, you have some power to say, well, I'm going to put the brakes on this because you have to sign for that debt obligation to get sold. but to do so might put your career at risk in some fashion or create problems. So I think if we could focus on, is there a consensus among the group, and especially our incoming board members, that there's a reason to not sell that bond issue on Thursday and delay that into a time frame where they can be seated on the board and make that decision along with the other 3 board members. One thing I looked at, I met with a lawyer yesterday. It's possible to go to the common pleas court and file for a temporary restraining order. According to the attorney, the way that could succeed is if the board has missed a deadline, done something technically that doesn't conform to the policies and procedures or Ohio law in some fashion, which I'm not aware that there is one. But another way is pattern and practice of a board that has not been meeting their fiduciary responsibility to the district. That's a Hail Mary at best, but it could potentially cause this thing to get kicked into January. So could we focus as a group here, what is the consensus with our new incoming board members, with you guys? I mean, it seems clear that something's got to be done for Buckeye, but are we going, $9.5 million, 12 million, 15 million? Or are we going to roll it back and just replace the classrooms that were torn out, the trailers, with classroom space? That's bricks and mortar.
Understood.
Is that a question?
Yeah, and I think that if we have a consensus that, what you've been able to do is affirm at least the will of this group here, which I think is reasonably representative of the concerns of parents and taxpayers and residents in this community. The people that have put forth the time and effort to weigh in and, as opposed to the people who are just sitting at their home and they're like, yeah, screw it, whatever they do is whatever they do.
Yeah, well, a couple things to consider, and I certainly respect your perspective there, and I think most of us would agree that if we can go back in time, we would do this in a different order. But and I'm glad that we touched base on Lamuth and the high school, because that was the original concern a couple years ago, and that the plan was centered around starting there. Regardless of that, unfortunately, to the point he made, we still have 2 months, A. B, we really can't ignore the almost $1 million that has been spent on moving Buckeye forward, and that's undoable. While there hasn't been a shovel put into the ground at Buckeye, we are, frankly, at a point of no return. Now, the $15 million, the moving to $15 million, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not a vote that necessarily needs to happen at the board level. You already have that jurisdiction to do that, is that correct?
It's a little bit gray, but definitely will consult with our attorneys. What I would most like to do, of course, to your comment about my fear of my job, it's not in fear of my job, it's, I want to be beloved in Riverside, and this isn't helping me. This is a bad way to start, so, but, no, that seriously is not the issue. The issue, my personal struggle is I want to do what's right, and at the same time, I want to be respectful to all 7 school board members, right? So, and then of course, ultimately I want to do what's legal. What do I have the legal authority to do? I believe, again, we need to sit down with the attorney. If I felt there was a consensus to, we can't stop, we need to move forward, but let's do the whole building, let's go to 15 million. Then I would say it's Chris and I's job to sit down with our 3 board members and try to at least explain the rationale and what we're trying to do. It's not derailing their plan, it's actually enhancing their plan. So that's where I would hope to be able to move the needle to some degree. But that I feel like I'd feel a lot more comfortable going down that road than I would to just kibosh the whole thing and have potentially $1 million hanging over my head that I came in and made a decision that cost the taxpayers $1 million off the get-go.
I will tell you one thing about Riverside, they never forget.
Yeah, I've been places that don't.
It depends on how you convey it to them. I mean, accepting $1 million of sunk costs that's largely due to a board that, 3 members of a prior board that were not willing to do the will of the district and the people, as opposed to taking on a debt obligation that hamstrings the district in the future for, other needs. I think the community would support you in that. I certainly would. So like, one of the reasons I came here today is to see where the consensus is. And, again, if the consensus of you two gentlemen, our incoming board members, Lori and Belinda, is to, whatever that is, then I'm fine with that, And I'm glad, I want to thank you for bringing us in here and giving us the opportunity to speak, because, in the past, we get the 3 minutes and that's it,
I think it could be a yes and. I think really and truly there was no, we had a plan. Plans change all the time. I think visions change all the time. I think that I think we're put where we are. I think you can do both and be successful. I think we can do Buckeye and in debt and we can't incur any more debt. I mean, there's no more, regardless of what we're doing, there is no more building of anything without additional funds that come in, whether it's through some type of county initiative, whether it's through some type of voter initiative, or both. But I think it's a yes and, because I think really, when you look at the initial plan that was, 20 years now, I mean, I don't know when I sat on that board, the plan, we had the 3 phases. Phase 1 were 2 elementary schools. Revisionist history, I think Mr. Placco and I sat there and go, man, we should have put 3 on. But that was phase 1 at the time. So phase 1 was the 2 elementary schools. Phase 2 was the 7-12 campus. And then phase 3 was convert Lamuth into the 3rd large elementary school. This takes away from that, and this kind of combines and revisions it to phase 3 now is convert Buckeye into the 3rd elementary school. Lamuth becomes some sort of middle school or intermediate school if we keep it online. It still has that purpose and can be whatever it needs. And then the high school look, that's where the community input comes in. I think this shores up our elementary plan, which is 3 elementaries, 2 brand new and a remodeled one, completely remodeled. But it shores that up, and then it does look into, okay, what do we do for the secondary needs and what's our ask? And I think that's the focus moving forward. It needs to be the focus. And don't forget, we have other needs too. We have a maintenance department that needs to be done. We have a bus. If you have a high school student and drive in here in the mornings, you're dodging buses, drivers, and everything else. And we have 15-year-olds doing that as well, which is kind of scary. But we have, so we need a facility for that, and looking to what those solutions are as well. So this next, whatever we do, this board in January has a lot of work on their hands to kind of look at what's the ask from the community. Quite frankly, there's got to be some healing done too. There's got to be some healing amongst the board, the current sitting members and the new members, and there's got to be some healing amongst our community. I think that has to happen. I know this. I know this district, and I understand there is a message sent. We need to go out and listen and say, what's the message? Because the part of the message is we're not going to say yes to anything unless we trust you. So we have to build trust. And that's really what we're working for, is how do we build trust and how are we out there? And there's nothing that's happening behind the scenes that's a secret, hey, we're going to push this forward. No, this is where we're at. This is the 3rd part of the plan that we've always said. This is we're flip-flopping a phase where we thought we would get money back from the state from the 2 buildings, and we would use that to redo Lamuth. Well, now, okay, we're flip-flopping, we're borrowing a little bit, but let's see where the future goes. But the issue is now we've got an elementary, we've got 4 to 5 grades buttoned up, or 5 to 6 grades buttoned up, done new in grade spaces. Now what do we do moving forward? And that really is, and we've got expansion room. Because we know that we're building houses and we can see that we can expand. We've got a plan for that. So I think we've got a plan that fits that. It's not maybe what we all initially thought, or not what the community survey came out, but we can take it, we can work with it, and we'll make it work, and we'll get better with it. Right now we have a great preschool. If we have to move preschool at some point because enrollment goes up, we've got that flexibility. So we're building spaces that are flexible and that can pivot and turn, and that's what we've always done here. That's why Riverside's a 1/4 mile long. John R. at one point was 8th and 9th grade, I think. And then it was a middle school, I think, at one point. 7th grade was there. it's, because people who have, alumni who work here say, well, I remember this, well, yeah, there's all of that. But I really do think that's the historical history of this district, and that's the future of it too, is how do we make spaces that are flexible, that change, and that shift to meet the population that we have at that time.
Just one other question, is Buckeye, Jen Kalen again, sorry, probably know that by now, but,
Once is good.
is Buckeye being designed with expansion in mind? Because if we take Melridge offline, the classrooms that are being done at Buckeye aren't gonna be enough.
So if we take Melridge offline, 8 classrooms at Buckeye is not enough, 12 is.
Correct. But if we go with the 8, are those is that addition that is being proposed right now being designed with expansion in mind?
It's a single floor, straight shot out the back. Even if we're at the point now where if we added the extra floor, we'd probably add them on the other wing of Buckeye coming off the media center.
So you would add a second floor?
No, we would add we would not go second, it'd still be just a 1-floor building.
Okay.
And then the other 4 would be off where the library is on the other, I don't know,
Okay.
the right side, I don't know, north, I
Right.
can't get directional.
Where's the lake?
But off the media center. I don't know, because I can't see it from Buckeye. In the back had a,
Yeah,
It's the east side.
had his hand up a long time.
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
My name is Bill Corey. I'm a 40-year resident of Concord and Riverside, and I still have grandchildren in the school. I sort of heard the answer I was looking for was, I know that the board has approved up to that 15 million. If they don't, if there's no way of getting that, it seems like that we're in a dead end for expansion in the Buckeye School, and that seems to be absolutely the most ridiculous spot to be in going forward with a new board, okay? This is the most involved I've ever had to be involved in the school district. 40 years I've been here, all right? I've been to a few school board meetings. I've listened to almost all of them. If you can't get it to 15 million to make a plan that is actually, that can be built on to get to what the original old plan, I've been through so many plans, it's unbelievable.
we had a plan for a plan.
Yeah, but it seemed like the one the community voted for earlier would have been a very good workable solution. It seems like we can mold that one more time. I won't be around for it when it's there. I mean, 40 years and I'm a little long in the tooth, but if you can't get the 15 million, what can you do? Because it might take an injunction, because that's a stupid dead end plan. That gives no flexibility at all, other than the fact that you have 4 rooms, or 8 rooms, or whatever it is. That is not flexible, and from a taxpayer, a longtime taxpayer that just got hit with the biggest tax increase ever, that's stupid, all right? You're getting my money. I always vote for the levies, because when you build your community, you build your school, your property gets more valuable, period. End of story. This is you're gonna be paying more taxes, and guess what? Your values are gonna go down. All right, that's not a great thing. So that's an old folk opinion, and probably the oldest here in the room.
If I could right now, I'd run up, hug you, and give you a kiss if we weren't on a video.
I'd advise you against that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's videoed. I'm not doing it.
Even if we weren't on video, I would still advise you against that. Anyone else?
Adam Keller. So, how does renovating Buckeye impact the future maintenance cost, and what kind of offset could that have on the interest payments we have on the loan?
I would submit to you that at increasing $150,000 out of the PI to go to 15 million, provided no funds were put into the remaining elementary school and it was closed, that increase would be offset.
I would also say, if you remember last year, part of the Buckeye expansion is to replace the water line. We had a significant debt last year when the water line snapped. We actually had to cancel school for a day, but that was not a cheap fix. And it's just this much, and the water line's a lot longer, so there's other opportunities that could happen. So there's a lot of emergency funds that could potentially come up at the building that would be offset by that as well. So like I said, to do it and do it right would be the way to absolutely go there. And it would also increase, the other part is, would be more efficient. Windows would be more efficient, so heating and cooling kind of offset as well. Lighting, electric, all of that. So the cost in running that facility would go down. With sans air conditioning as we're putting the air through it, but that's just a general need for all of it. So I think that's a significant shift to what we would do. So I think doing the whole building correctly, and to me it doesn't make sense to put brand new air and heat and into a building and not do the windows. So we're essentially air conditioning and heating the outside, and so putting those windows in, and also there's a safety issue with the windows as well. So that to me is where some of the savings will come from.
Okay, so I just had two questions. One was, are we talking 8 or 12 now? I'm very confused.
Name first.
Susie Stimmitz, I teach at Buckeye Elementary School.
So our recommendation, and I think it's both Belinda's and Lori's in my conversations with them, would be to upgrade it to 12, to a 12 classroom edition, and what that would look like. We would ask the experts in design to give us some options as to what it could look like to put through a change order.
Because I know if we're talking just classrooms, we still have 3 teachers that are in not classrooms. There's lots of things.
Even in the 8 classroom space, there are small group rooms for some of those teachers. So there are designated small group rooms and spaces and meeting rooms and that have been built into this 8 classroom edition. There would be more.
Okay, because if we're gonna ultimately shut down Melridge, then those teachers would have to come over. And I just want to make sure that everybody has enough room if we're going to do this thing.
I think it's important to say again, when you first started this meeting, that the original resolution back in January did call for up to 12 classes.
The original resolution was a 12 classroom edition when we sat and looked at what it would be to add on to Buckeye. And in the original facilities report, the part with Melridge was to repurpose Melridge for some other community purpose, whether it was a small school, whether it was a special school, whether it was eventually the district's preschool. To be honest, we've looked at, can it be the board office?
Sure.
Whatever, those are all down the road, and those are all things that aren't in necessarily the necessity. But our original facilities plan was to try to take another building off of our books, or to some point where they're on our books, but they're not necessarily up to school status. Like they're a different level.
And then my second question is, and this is far down the road, but if we're going to be building during the time that we have school, during the school year, our playground will be gonzo. Completely. And all those kids inside all year.
So
We'll give you a supplemental contract to watch.
No. So even if the voted on plan is to start construction and to start mobilizing within the next 3 weeks. So there's going to be fencing up and all of that. They are very aware of playground spaces and providing playground spaces to students. And so the fence has this unique shape to it to kind of cut in and take some things out so that they can fence. I will tell you that both the architects and construction manager are really cognizant about that part of it and moving kids in playgrounds and making sure that our kids, it is not going to be ideal. There is going to be some times and purposes where they are shifting and there's going to be some hindrances on some of that equipment. But it is truly about how can we do both? Because I think that's the other part is regardless of when it starts, if it starts in 3 weeks, if it starts in after the snow breaks in the spring, there's still going to be some pain points on those students and kind of what they can do. They do believe they can build whatever the addition is over and have it open by probably January of next year, but have the major structures they can continue to shrink the fence. So in a Riverview aspect, they didn't necessarily keep shrinking the fence. They kept it up. This one, they can kind of move the fence as they start to box it off and clear it and all that.
Okay, because I heard like 30 feet or whatever, and that would be.
There's some of it, yes. We pushed back a little bit. That's not good enough, and so they came back with some. The last reiteration we saw was pretty much where they have some playground access,
Okay, 'cause they just
and they're
have to
moving
move
dirt.
around.
They need to move
If
around.
worse
They don't
comes to
just-
worse, they're gonna hammer, they need help.
Yeah.
Super
We will call it
good.
junior CTE.
I do want to add on to what you've asked, because I think it's relevant now for me just to kind of input this. Given the cards that have been dealt and the $1 million overhang that we mentioned, I personally, given the situation as it stands today, do support, while I have no authority, I know some of us are wanting it to delay till January, and that's not realistic, unfortunately. Given the current situation, I too agree that 12 classrooms is the right move to make, given the situation. But to people, including me, because I have a daughter in Lamouth, all of my kids have gone through Buckeye, one of whom is in Buckeye currently. I too agree that Lamouth and the high school, including John R., do have some immediate concerns. And I think it's fair to say that we're all committed to making sure that those two schools don't get put too far back on the back burner. Yes.
Oh, back.
Sorry. So the 12 is for a gymnasium and the classrooms, or what other facilities?
Well, classrooms are 12 million.
The classroom, sorry.
So the 12 classroom, like the chain is still, there's still a gymnasium. The current 12 million, there's a lot of 12s.
Yeah.
The current,
Right.
yeah, the current $12 million borrow is for 8 classrooms, a gymnasium, which is, that cost of that is $9.5 million. So then there's an additional 2.5 for renovations to Buckeye and Melridge currently in the process. This would be 15 million for 12 classrooms, a gymnasium, and then renovations to all of Buckeye to finish Buckeye up as to what it is.
Would that increase the cafeteria size? Because how many students are we looking at adding into the building?
It would not increase the cafeteria size. The cafeteria would be the same, but it does have the stage, and we looked at kind of how do we incorporate that into a cafeteria.
So you're doubling the size, but you're not increasing the cafeteria
We're adding-
size?
yes,
What's
we-
lunch gonna look like?
For teachers'
Double the
lounge.
students
Yeah.
and the same size cafeteria. It's just something to consider.
It is. That's a consideration we'd have to look at kind of what that is. I think we would probably add lunches to add lunch to lunchtimes. We would add
And we
spaces.
would be able to do that. Right now, we're kind of constrained because of our gym space is also cafeteria space. If we were able to have a gymnasium, that would open up more flexibility to open our cafeteria to have more sections of lunch.
You had mentioned windows for replacement for the entire Buckeye School. Are we talking the kind of ballistic windows like were installed at Parkside? Or are we talking regular, energy efficient windows?
We have not had those specific conversations. And there is a standard that we have, and a lot of that is done, kind of, we keep those in safety and security and executive session, but we do have a standard for safety that we like to adhere to.
Because one observation I had back when Jim Kalis was, and the building of Buckeye and I'm sorry, not Buckeye, Parkside, was that there was a significantly larger expense for the types of windows put in. And I made an observation. I said, in almost every case where a bad actor is committing some heinous crime, they've already breached the perimeter security, and having windows that prevent egress and prevent rescue attempts, even if it was just a fire, might defeat the purpose of what you're trying to achieve there. So just something to consider.
And I think there are other products now that have been introduced that do kind of both, so you can have both a high efficiency window and some sort of ballistic capability as well. So I think we've looked at what that looks like, and to have an egress style window as well. The Parkside and Hervey windows do have egress to them. I think the new Buckeye current ones have it planned in it. Okay. As well.
Well, seeing how we have.
Look at
Oh, Melissa!
Dr. Malacher.
Oh, yeah. Melissa Malacher, Director of Curriculum. Riverside graduate, raised my kids here. They all graduated from here, and 32-year employee. So I am officially the OG of all of these plans, I have decided. So I just want, I want to ask a couple of questions, clarifying questions, and I adore the two of you, but I just would like a yes or no answer, or as concise as we can be to my questions, okay? So, number one.
No.
I'm not personally asking for money. These are clarifying questions. Number one, on November 20th, there is a resolution to issue the debt to continue with the Buckeye project, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we can go on the assumption that that debt issuance resolution is going to pass. So having said that, the question becomes, or what part of this discussion is whether or not we have the ability to potentially, based on the feedback that you have gotten, to potentially increase that debt issuance so that we could do Buckeye to the level that the community and perhaps the incoming board sees necessary.
Under the existing resolution.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because the
That's-
resolution is going to happen and it's going to pass.
The
and so
resolution
now
has happened.
It's already.
the resolution's there.
It's
Okay,
already
so
passed.
whether, okay, so,
It's the debt issuance
Yeah.
and the timing of the debt issuance, which is
and then my
scheduled.
last question to you is, when that resolution happens and you are directed to issue that debt, that money can only be spent on what the resolution stated, correct?
Correct.
So there's no going back and finagling. Once that resolution passes on November 20th, there will be,
It's passed.
oh, so one,
So once the debt is issued.
once the debt is, so they
Next
will be
Thursday.
issuing the debt on Thursday. Okay, so that is a thing. It's happening. That debt is getting issued to do a Buckeye project, correct?
Correct.
Done. Okay, that's what I needed to know.
And that is a great question to ask, and that's a good takeaway for everybody, that is the main sticking point as to why a lot of us have been saying we're at a point of no return.
It's happening.
Yeah, once it's issued and once November 20th comes in, it is designated for Project X. There's no us in January, not that I'm saying we would do so, just give you an example. We couldn't just decide to move it to Lemuth or the high school, for example.
Thank you.
There's no flexibility on the COPS dollars. COPS are held against a specific property.
Thank you. You did really good.
Can
to
you
answer my
say we issue just the 12 million, that's all that is agreed upon? Down the road, can we take it to the 15 and then add those 4 classrooms on if they choose not to?
So that's a good question that I don't have the answer to. When I asked that initially, it was no, because the whole building itself is a collateral. So if we stop paying, they come in and they have the rights to the building. I don't know who wants a school, but if we were to stop paying, they would come in and have those and have the rights to the entire building. Could we potentially just use the 4 classrooms, that you can get these 4 classrooms? I don't believe we can. And I think that our TANs, our tax anticipation notes, are stretched out to the limit as well. And those are, so it's a structured payment where those are 5 or 10 years. I
Those
think.
are 10 years.
Those are 10 years. We're taking money for 10. So that's still 10 years that we are stretched. We can't issue another one on top of it. So I think that's where we're at with this. Is it really, when we relook at how do we reissue this debt, it is a new structure that comes for 15 million. It's not just the standard. I think it was a conversation with our a consultant that talked about, hey, can we do 12 classrooms, 15 million, can we make it happen? He said, yeah, we can make that happen. We don't have hard numbers yet to that, but I mean, it's a $6.5 million jump. I think we can. So I think that's definitely $6.5 million to finish the entire building floors and also put on 4 classrooms. It's going to be tight, but it'll be. Yeah.
So is it fair to say that the risk here with regard to these COPS and TANs is that just like any one of us with our mortgages, if we default on it, we could lose the property through foreclosure action, and then whoever wins the foreclosure, presumably the creditor, they can do what they want with that property.
those bondholders, yes.
Okay. It goes back.
Which would be liquidated.
Right.
So,
So in an instance, if property taxes were abolished and there's no additional revenue coming from the state, how would we continue to maintain those payments?
I've asked about that. So I specific, and the question they have given is, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's just not, and let me be clear that is just not for Buckeye.
No,
That
no.
is for Parkside and Riverview. So if property taxes are abolished, that's how we pay for those buildings. So the real question is, I don't know. And they don't just wipe it from you. Like you still owe the bondholders. So I think that's the biggest part with this whole property tax bill that they don't have the answers to. And it's not just us. Fairport is just about to open, and that's all paid. So what happens to the brand new Fairport? What happens to Willoughby Eastlake schools? All of those are all being paid by property tax. So they don't have the answers to that.
Jonathan Breach, alumni, teacher, and coach in the district. The new vision of this new Buckeye, does that include fifth grade? We love them, but we are certainly busting at the seams at Lamouth as the current enrollment stands at a 5, 6, 7 building.
So as I mentioned earlier, it does not. And this is a large, so to be clear, this is the large fifth grade class that's coming through. The numbers will slip down. There's a bubble, and then they get smaller. So we know that these are 3 years of bubbles as we look at enrollment history. I think the other thing to say is the next step is, where does fifth grade go as a district? Because we found they work well at the middle level with that sort of education. As we grow, and if we grow in enrollment, what does that look like, and do all fifth graders go to Lamouth? And the options were either Lamouth becomes 5-6 and stays as it is, or 5-8, and we build on a large addition on the other side and put a new field and all that. That comes from the work of the community shortly, once a new board gets in place and we start really listening to what do we want for this future, and what's our plan, and what are we sticking to, and what addresses all of it. This is just addressing our elementary spaces.
If we get the 15 million, are we obligated to the 15 million? Or let's say there's grants or things that come out, and do we have to spend it, do we have to spend it all?
we have a 3-year time limit to spend it all.
But you don't have to?
No, you have to.
You have to, okay. But if say some other things come in and it becomes 12 million, but we've obligated the 15 and we can only use it on Buckeye, what happens at other $3 million?
My understanding, we can use it on other projects for some of that.
The TANs we could.
The TANs we can.
So that's
Yes.
2.5 million. So 2.5 million has flexibility. But I can tell you, in every construction project I've ever done, Rich, chime in here, have you ever seen them say, we got a change order and we're going to give you money back? I've never seen it.
Yeah, so, and again, 15's a rough estimate. The more money we have, the better, because we could do more. And I think that's the part of it. So even going to grants is that, but the 15 is for the structure. There's still other things that, it's going to have to. So I think that's where, to limit the amount of value engineering we have to do would be a bonus. So to find some of that, I think that's where we're looking at what that looks like.
But they need to approve this at a board meeting, right? The 15? Or can we just?
If we were to go to 15, we would look to restructure it. What we need to do is just kind of have some listing right now to see what Dr. Thompson makes the decision for.
Thanks, Dr. Regino.
I was taking off the initial proposal. So, but
I believe that I want to consult with our board, and I want to consult with our attorney, but I believe that we have the flexibility because the resolution says not to exceed $15 million. That's what was approved. So I think that exists there. There's and why did it say not to exceed? Because if the interest rates were really good, the idea was, let's not hamstring ourselves to only 12 million. If the interest rates are low, bond holders are, see us as a good risk, a good investment, then we could get more money than 12 million. and still keeping our payment. At that point, our goal was $850,000 a year. So the idea was to get as much money as you can for $850,000. That's why it was not to exceed $15 million.
All right, anybody else?
I'm a little uncomfortable with how you characterize that, just to the extent that, you know, in our personal lives as homeowners, right? If we get a line of credit on our house, we don't just go ahead and spend the whole line of credit because the money's there. So as a resident, I would be looking to you and the board to really sharpen your pencil up and make sure that, you know, you're not borrowing and spending 15 million just because it's available.
I agree,
Yeah.
100%.
I'd like to-
I apologize if I made it sound that way.
Okay.
I think we're going to be very hard pressed to get this done at 15 million. It is my professional opinion. If we for some reason it does come in $500,000 lower, we can shift up to 2.5 million of that on another building, and there's no question we can use that $500,000 somewhere else in the district.
Or could the additional 500,000 to have, whatever it is, could be used to pay down the bond issue early, to accelerate the retirement of that bond issue?
That's a fair question that I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I'll look into that. That's a good question.
I would say the other question that's been asked a couple of times by others are, you know, if we go out for phase, whatever you want to call it, we talk about the secondary structure and we have money that we bring in for that, can we use that money to pay down the cops as well? I think those are questions we have to ask and look at that as to where that comes from. Or when our time comes up with the state and we get those monies we can use to pay down the bond issue, or those monies we can use to pay down, you know, the next phase bond issue. So I think those are both issues that we have that are coming, because we know we're getting money back from Parkside Riverview. We just don't know when.
So do we agree or disagree that the consensus is to allow the Buckeye project to move forward without anyone trying to interfere with that, or without someone trying to go to common police court or whatever? To be blunt, if that's the consensus, I'm not gonna go file anything in the courthouse. Okay?
I'll let you give your professional opinion, but that doesn't, whether there was a court injunction or not, that's not gonna undo the $1 million overhang we mentioned earlier.
I agree. I recognize that.
I would always advise against suing the district, but that's just my personal.
That's in his contract.
I'm not making that as a threat.
No, I know.
You know.
I think truly what I'm hearing, and I'm not necessarily hearing any, is the consensus in the rooms appears that to finish Buckeye completely and to take what we can to make sure we finish the project thoroughly, and that it fits within the vision of moving forward.
Suna Hamid, I would just like to thank Mrs. Grassi and Mrs. Krasinski, Dr. Bettino and Dr. Thompson for allowing this meeting, for allowing a time to listen to the community, and to allow us to come together and move forward.
Well, I thank you. I do appreciate you all showing up. Thank you so much, and please continue to reach out if you have questions. Oh, one more.
I think there's actually two more. But I'm just gonna say, right, just because it is a lot to follow, and I think it kind of piggybacks off of Melissa's question. So I know we know that this debt issuance is going to pass, but if by some divine intervention it doesn't.
No, it has. I misspoke. It's done. That's what you needed to take away. It's done. The debt is getting issued on Thursday.
So
That's
not
the
a
bottom.
vote. That's not a.
It's done. They already did it.
That was a vote. That was a 3-2 vote that
Yes.
already went through.
It's done.
Whatever's happening.
It's just a payday.
Yep, so the
Essentially.
debt's getting issued. That is actually
It
happening.
is when, and not necessarily the Thursday, because if we ask for 15, they may have to delay it another week to restructure it and get it out to the bond investors. I don't know what that looks like, to be completely honest, but I think the other part is truly, we have been directed to issue debt. That is going to happen sooner rather than later.
For Buckeye.
For Buckeye.
Like, there's no deviating from that. That is happening.
Okay.
Okay, my question, Kelly Jaborik. If we borrow up to the $15 million, close Melridge, move it over to Buckeye, how much is left in the PI fund every year for the next 30 years? I thought you said between $500,000 and $800,000 a year for the next.
No, let me be clear. We bring in $3 million. We have $955,000 of that $3 million, so a little over $2 million left. What we have budgeted, what we know, like 4 buses a year, et cetera, that's all been projected out. When that's done, depending on the year, we have anywhere between $500,000 to $800,000 left each year.
Correct.
For
30.
the unforeseen.
Right, about 30 years. So if by chance something major happens and you need more than the $800,000.
General fund.
It comes from the general fund.
That's correct.
I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah,
to
that
everybody.
is
That's where
correct.
it's gonna come from.
That's correct.
Okay. Which we're gonna be in deficit spending in that fund in 27?
Well,
correct?
in this next, well, now that we just got hit with a $1.3 million reduction that goes in January, it's now. Soon as that 4-year forecast gets revised, I'm certain it will show deficit spending. Now, that doesn't, just to be clear, we're eating into our reserves. We don't have a deficit, but we are deficit spending. Okay.
How much are our reserves currently?
There's about 22 million in cash reserves right now. By 30/30, we're showing upside down. I got to make adjustments again because we're going to lose 1.3 million a year. Multiply that over 4 years. There's another $5 million that's got to come off that. So it might be as early as 29. We'll see. We'll see how revenues come in. Right now, revenues are exceeding what I projected, so that's good. Not by a significant amount, but some. So hopefully we can offset some of that. But I've never this is my 30th year. I've never seen so much unpredictability moving forward for public education as it is now. I mean, we just don't. So many unknowns, and it's shifting, seismically shifting day to day. So I don't, we'll do the very best we can. I can tell you, and this is not lip service, this is not me trying to sell the district, this is just me coming in new, nothing to do with me at all. This district runs really lean. People always think, government overspends and we have too many this or too many that. And some districts do, quite frankly. Some districts do. But not here. It's thin.
That's what we should.
I just wanted to make a comment so people aren't blindsided in the future. The part about the COPS loan is it's not quite like a home mortgage. Once we enter it and the debt is issued, we cannot refinance for 5 years. So when if the rates drops in the near future, we will not be able to refinance that until after 5 years.
Correct. A 5-year hold.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
I haven't had a chance